Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We have the ability to ruffle some feathers,
Yeah.
it seems. Which is funny because, well, I wouldn't say it's funny. It's sort of baffling to me because the fact that anybody could take me seriously, just as an individual, as a person.
Well, they don't know you.
It just,
Some people listening don't know you.
you know, like I don't even take myself seriously.
Yes, you do. You take yourself too seriously sometimes.
I mean, I don't, look. Welcome to While She's Napping. I am Adam.
And I'm Cindy.
The fact that anybody would get mad at me when I consider myself to be a dumbass, like, why waste your time getting mad at a dumbass?
I think that's why they're mad at you, because you talk about it like you know everything.
I'm dumb. I don't know anything.
Well, no, but in all seriousness, yes, we are still learning, and everything that we cover on this podcast, we don't pretend to be experts on. And, you know, we are two full-time working parents of a toddler, and we've got a lot of shit going on. So we do the best we can, but we're, you know, our whole objective of this podcast was to just kind of like talk like we would normally talk to each other about any topics that are of interest. And so that's what we're doing.
All right. So we were referring to last week's episode regarding the fat acceptance community. We had quite a few negative responses, and you know, if we're going to evaluate a podcast, and this is not to take anything away from the criticisms, okay? And this has nothing to do with the criticisms, but if we're going to evaluate the podcast, can you at least say the quality was pretty good? Can we at least say that, like the sound quality? Just throw me something positive, no?
I don't know. I don't think that's something you're concerned about.
No, I know. I'm just trying to break the ice with humor.
I know.
Look, we can disagree about certain things. Okay, we can disagree about, I'm not even going to label them out. We can disagree about some things regarding health and wellness and the state of being fat or overweight. We can disagree with some things. The bottom line is, I thought I made this pretty clear in the beginning of the episode, or at least during portions where we started to unpack our feelings about the movement or the community or whatnot. Maybe I didn't make it clear enough. I need to make it clear again. In no way do I think anybody that is, you know, of a movement that embraces some sort of positivity and that doesn't spew hate speech like Nazis or whatever, and by no means is the fat acceptance.
There's no comparison.
There is no comparison. They're not even close. I think anybody is deserving of respect. And I thought I made that clear in listening back to the episode. We explicitly said that. Mm-hmm. So I apologize if that didn't come clear enough.
Yeah. I think from my perspective, listening back, I think we did say it explicitly, but I think some of the other things that came across in the conversation, or maybe some of the context that was lacking, maybe didn't align with what we said. Like, I don't think, so I can understand why it may have been interpreted that way.
We can disagree on the health status of things, but that doesn't mean I don't think you're worthy of respect. That doesn't mean I don't think you're worthy of love or companionship or opportunities. None of that. I think despite those disagreements, you are entitled, I should say, or you have a right to feel beautiful. You have a right to feel positive. You have a right to feel good about yourself. I'm not saying, in no time did I say these people are worthless. I don't think they are.
Well, I think, of course not. And I think one of the reasons why maybe it came across as insensitive is because I feel like we did explicitly say on the episode that neither of us have ever lived this experience. Neither of us has ever been in this position. So I think it might have come across as kind of random, like we were just kind of passionately attacking this movement for no apparent reason. But I mean, we do have some context. So even though neither of us have personally experienced it, we have been affected by this with people that we love, not listening to the advice of their healthcare providers in terms of, recommendations recommendations to change their nutrition and physical activity, and it was, it was a very negative experience. So I don't know if you want to, you don't have to say anymore if you don't want to.
A close family member passed away because he was ignoring the nature of his weight status and decided that it wasn't anything to be really concerned with. Now, I don't know if that is the same sort of message that is pointed out. I'm not going to come out and say that the fat acceptance community outright says do not pay attention to your health status or the health advice of your doctors. I'm not even going to go that far. I don't know.
Well, I think I started digging in a little bit more to try to get a better sense of how consistent that message is, if it really is, because that was my interpretation, was that was consistently discouraged, and then actively discouraging people from eating nutritiously or trying to be, try to incorporate more healthy behaviors like exercise and good nutrition into their life. That's actively discouraged, and people are told not to do that despite the advice of their doctors. Okay. And that's what concerns me, and that's what is a direct connection to our experience. Well,
regardless, look, to wrap a bow on this, and this is just a 5-minute response to the backlash. First of all, thank you for listening. Thank you for reaching out.
Yes, absolutely.
We actually, as a result of this, if we're going to take a negative out of a positive out of a negative, rather, or any silver lining, the amount of engagement and listenership actually put us in the chart for society and culture on Apple Podcast. Okay, so that's good.
I mean, I'm more. I'm just glad that we did have people who were, courageous enough to call us out and message us. And
yeah. So the comments that were left, we weren't ignoring, we weren't disregarding. We just sort of wanted to take a step back and say, okay, let's absorb this information. Let's examine this situation. Let's examine the episode again, give it a re-listen, try to find out what sort of parallels we can make to the backlash and what we said, how we said it. All this is a learning process. I do think a big part of having intellectual experiences is having uncomfortable conversations and fucking up here and there. So I get it. But the one thing I will offer pushback on, and this doesn't even have anything to do with the movement, the fact that someone would say to us that, you're not a medical doctor, so how can you talk about medical things? Look, I'm not a medical doctor, but I know cigarette smoking is bad. I know that's bad. I'm able to vocalize that. I know that having a hardcore alcohol problem is bad. I don't need to be a medical professional to know that. There are certain things that you don't need to be a medical professional to have a good idea about things. This, if you want to disagree that this doesn't fall into that category, that's fine. We can have that disagreement. But the mere fact that we don't have to be professionals in something in order to talk about it. Like Simon Cowell isn't a great singer, but he can evaluate singing talent, right?
Sure.
So you don't have to be in that profession to have an opinion about things.
Yeah. And we're not claiming to be experts. We're not claiming to say that what we say is the be all end all by any means. We're just talking about it with the information that's available to us.
That's all. So if you feel comfortable in this, that is your choice to make. That is
we didn't mean to judge in that sense. I mean,
you can do whatever you want. It has literally no effect on me.
Yeah.
What anybody outside of my personal sphere of close-knit friends and family do, whatever you want to do, have at it. It has nothing to do with me. So,
but that's why we're so passionate about it, because we have experience within our close-knit group of friends and family where this has affected us. That's all. And the only other thing I want to set straight is that we will never block people or set our account to private or in any way discourage the conversation or discourse. We are genuine when we say we want to hear feedback, even if it's negative or if it's constructive criticism or whatever, as long as it's not hateful and as long as it's, be as honest as you want, but we really truly mean it when we say we want to hear from people. And we're not, like Adam said, we're not ignoring it. We're not blocking people. We did not set our account to private, nothing like that.
The one thing I did do is disable comments on the post just so I can sit
while we
back
were absorbing it and
evaluate
talking
the
about it.
situation. That's all.
Yeah.
We did further research on this. We did further research on the movement's perspective of things. We sort of evaluated that, juxtaposed that with what we put out in the episode. That's all. That's all we wanted to do. We didn't want to come back with a knee-jerk reaction to make things worse. I do believe that having the opportunity to sort of get the information in order to respond in a responsible way, so we're not just digging our heels into a situation,
right?
I think that's prudent, and I think that's responsible. That's all. That's all. So,
and unfortunately, the people whose feathers we probably ruffled are not going to listen again, and they probably won't hear this.
Fine.
But yeah, we needed to acknowledge the aftermath
whatever.
of that episode.
Look, we're not even a big time podcast anyway, so
yeah.
We
just don't want to cause people harm. That is
Yes.
not our intention in any way, shape, or form.
So let's dive right in. First of all, if you are listening to this episode for the first time and you have no idea what we're talking about, I invite you to go back into the archives and listen to the episode on the fat acceptance community. There was a part of me that wanted to take the episode down, but for the sake of transparency and for the sake of continuity and for the sake of, I don't know, just having the episode in the archives, feel free to dig in. I'm not going to talk any further on the position that Cindy and I have or may have had or what have you. We're just going to leave it up, let it go. If you're listening to this for the first time, we welcome you. If you come across this podcast via Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or Reddit, we thank you for clicking on the episode. We thank you that your interest was piqued enough to listen to this episode about the paranormal. We're going to lighten it up today. We'd also like to thank people from all over the world. We had actually quite a few listeners last week, and for that, I am grateful. Thank you for people in the United States, Canada, Australia, the United Kingdom, Mexico, and of course, Nepal. You are sticking with us. You are sticking with us. Awesome. What is up? Specifically within the U.S., Rhode Island, shout out to Warren, Massachusetts, California, Virginia, Florida, New Hampshire, Texas, New York, Connecticut, Illinois, Maryland, Michigan, Georgia, Delaware, Arizona, Minnesota, Missouri, you're new, Mississippi, Montana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Utah, and of course, parts unknown. Where are you guys at? I still don't know. If you want to get in touch with us on any social media platform, Cindy, why don't you tell them where they can go?
We are on Facebook. Facebook.com.
Facebook.com/
while she's napping. We post any week that we're doing polls ahead of an episode to get some feedback. We post them on Facebook. We also put them on our Instagram account in the stories. We'll put the polls there as well. That's at While She's Napping, and also on Twitter at She's Napping Pod. You can also email us whileshe'snapping@gmail.com.
Okay. All right. So now that we got all of that out of the way, I invite everybody to move forward in today's topic. And today we're going to talk about the paranormal. Now, the reason why we're doing this is because apparently we got into the fall mood. First of all, how can you not like pumpkin spice? We never said anything about lattes. We don't like lattes. It was just pumpkin iced coffee.
No, I'll admit it. PSLs, why not?
Oh, you like
They're
lattes?
Delicious. Yeah.
Oh,
I don't drink them a lot, but it's a treat.
I'm just saying we were talking about iced coffee last week. We weren't even talking about lattes.
And the Glade plugins.
Yeah. Whatever. Anyways, so we got into the fall mood, even though here in Rhode Island, it's about 80 degrees Fahrenheit.
Well, we had a couple days where it was in like the low 70s and it felt like fall was coming.
Of course. And it's right around the corner. When we decided on this topic, I floated it out to you, Cindy. And when we decided on this topic, I said, hey, let's talk about the paranormal. People people buy into it. People like to think there are ghosts. As you can probably hear from my description of this, you probably realize I don't. But maybe this is an interesting topic to sort of break the ice and have something casual.
Sure.
And we were like, yeah, let's do it. And
I was like, I already had a pumpkin coffee today.
Yeah.
Why not?
Later on in the week, I said, we fucked up. We should have just This is after we previewed it. I said we should have saved this for Halloween.
We have other ideas for Halloween.
What are we thinking?
It's okay.
Okay, so what I want to do is for the first half of the show, I want to break down the sort of the psychology around why people believe in ghosts. And again, we are no experts.
These are our theories.
I am a 2% psychologist expert here, as I have documented on a previous show. I've taken intro to psychology. Yeah, my dad was a psychologist professionally. So
I guess I'm in the
2%.
negative.
No, you're a 1% because you took Psych 101.
I did take intro psych.
Yeah, so you're a 1% expert.
Okay.
So I have a leg to stand on when it comes to this. When it comes to some of the reasons, not even psychological, just maybe spiritual or what have you, reasons why people want to believe in ghosts or divine intervention or paranormal experiences. And then in the second half of the show, we'll try to unpack some that were actually mentioned to us. We won't name names, just in the event that you want to keep that shit private. Totally cool with us. But we do sort of want to unpack them and respond to them in light of the first half of the episode. Mm-hmm. So why don't you begin?
Well, just to get a general read, I know we're going to talk about our listeners' responses in the second half, but a general number that I found for the number of or percentage of the population who believes in ghosts or paranormal world is 75%. So it's pretty high. Vast majority of people believe in some sort of paranormal world. And 1 in 5 people claim to have seen a ghost.
That's interesting.
That was higher than I expected.
What do you mean? What? So 1 in 5 people claim to have seen one or had an experience with one?
It didn't really specify in the article that I was reading.
Because I do think the ability to, or I shouldn't even say the ability, the experience of seeing a ghost, that is way more.
You're right. Like actually like seeing an apparition or something.
That is easily disregarded for me and dismissed compared to having some sort of external experience revolving, like I'm just using loose, like shutting of doors,
right,
what have you, because your eyes and mind play tricks on you all the time.
That's true. Yeah, there are other things that are equally or even probably more creepy, unexplainable things that happen that people assume is related to a ghost.
Yeah, this shit happens in the dead of night. This never, well, I shouldn't say never. The vast majority of these experiences happen when you see a ghost, quote unquote, happen in the fucking broad daylight. I mean, not broad daylight, in the dark. So,
which it probably is related then to the neurological things with sleep, of what state of sleep you're in, and if you come out of a deep sleep and your brain plays tricks on you. Yeah. So 1 in 5 say they've seen a ghost. Okay, what else you got? Well, I can just dive into some of the reasons why I think that might be. Sure. So that one was related to sleep and the timing of whenever these things happen, which, like you said, it's always at night. That's when it's creepy. That's when I think you're most apt to think you saw something that you didn't. But in general, I think and this is something that we kind of talked about, I think maybe during our pandemic episode, about people kind of like filling in the gaps if they don't totally understand something, similar to conspiracy theories, which we also covered. That it's just easier to accept certain things when you can assign an explanation to it, even if that explanation isn't necessarily based in reality or the most likely thing. It's just something to explain what's going on when you can't really understand it.
And I think there's a part of the human experience that wants to believe in something outside of us. And that goes for religion, that goes for, the ultimate creator, what have you. That there's a desire, I think, it's sort of innate in everybody, because the ability to explain things, or rather to explain the unexplainable, it's very easy to sort of get into this, I don't want to say fantasy land, but these unexplained phenomenons that, in order to fill in the gap, we throw our hands up and said, oh, must be something spiritual, must be something divine interfering. I don't know. I think that we'll start with the spiritual thing. When someone loses someone, when a loved one passes away, I think part of the comfort process, or the grieving process, is to believe that anything that you wouldn't have noticed before and that you're starting to notice now, you think, oh, this is that person trying to communicate with me.
Yeah.
Or if something unexplained happened, perhaps something fell off of the counter or the bookshelf or something. Rather than just diving in and saying, okay, how can I explain this with natural laws, with scientific, inquiry or what have you? How can this be explained? It's comforting just to go to, oh, that's my mom, my aunt, my dad, something. Yep. It's comforting for that. And I'm not necessarily sure people definitely believe that, but it's just,
a coping mechanism.
That makes me feel better.
Yeah.
So before we get into other people's examples, so my father passed away 2 years ago. And to give you an illustration of what I'm talking about, we were going for a walk, and usually we have to have our house keys because we lock up the house and whatnot. And I unlocked the car door from inside the house because it has the garage door opener. So I go outside, I hit the button for the garage door, and it opens from inside the car, and I shut the car door. Now, usually the car locks automatically, I think. Sometimes I've noticed it hasn't, but usually...
Almost always.
It doesn't take usually more than 5 to 10 minutes. We started going for a walk, and I said, oh man, I don't have my keys. And this is when our daughter was maybe 5-6 months old at the time. I'm like, oh, I don't have my keys.
We can't get back in.
Where am I? We can't get back in. And we were going to have to climb through the window or anything. I said, okay, well, let me just check the car door.
So that we could open the garage.
And the car door opened. And this
for the first time ever.
This is maybe a half hour after I opened it earlier.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, that's my dad. My dad did that.
That was the first thing you said.
And then
I
thought,
thanks, Dad.
No. Chances are that much time didn't actually pass. The amount of time that passed wasn't nearly as much as I thought. It's still within that window in which the alarm doesn't set for the car and the lock doesn't engage. And I was just lucky. I did it within time. But it is comforting to say, oh, there's something looking out for me, right? Or looking out for his grandchild or what have you. It's just the immediate knee jerk was, oh, thanks, Dad. But when you sit down and rationalize it, it's no. It's probably something simple.
Right. But it is comforting. And I think it's
initially.
Right. And I think in general, so I think it's comforting in the sense that it can help cope with grief. But I think it's also comforting in terms of our own mortality to think that that's not the end, that there's something else. I think a lot of people think when I die, that's not it. And there's something else after that.
Yeah, but that's pretty arrogant if you think about it. And this doesn't
humans are notoriously arrogant.
Well, yes.
in general.
And this doesn't necessarily have anything to do with an afterlife. But to think that something not physical or that can be explained within the laws of physics. And again, our understanding of physics and the nature of physics is very limited still. We're always discovering new shit. To think that something non-physical or paranormal rather can have that much of an interference with the physical realm is kind of ludicrous, right? It's how can something that no longer exists and that has no physical presence interfere with the physical world?
I think it's all about energy.
But energy is just ever present. It's just around us. It can't push a button.
Well, it can be more forceful in certain times. I mean, energy can be concentrated and it can be forceful.
Yes, but I'm moving on now to other things like books falling off the shelves.
Specific, or like
doors shutting and
right,
whatnot.
like things that require like conscious, intentional action.
Yes.
I know what you mean.
And there's no evidence to suggest that our consciousness is ever present. It's just the energy within our body remains, and I think there is
in some form.
Yes, I think there is scientific proof for that, but even that isn't physical energy.
Right. I think that's an important distinction. I think that's interesting. Like, I think there are people who do believe that in some sense, the spirit or the person's energy or whatever you want to call it, the soul, I mean, people call it all different things, but that does remain or exist in some form, some shape or form. But I think it's then another step to say that it can take the form of an actual ghost or apparition or something human-like and have the ability to affect the physical world in that way.
Yeah, it's kind of arrogant because, and again, this doesn't necessarily, if you want to believe in an afterlife, that's totally cool. This doesn't necessarily disprove that, because an afterlife doesn't have to be within the physical realm. It could be somewhere else.
Well, I think a lot of people who do believe would say there's an interim.
Like a purgatory.
Yeah. That's ghosts, apparitions, spirits, whatever haven't fully crossed over. I'm like having flashbacks to the Casper movie. I think they talk about that.
That is,
but I think that's the theory, is that not every spirit.
Grab.
Yeah, maybe not. It can be. Yeah, people taking advantage of that. People who claim to be mediums yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I just, when you look at the nature of the universe and when you see how big it is and what we really are. I was watching this thing on the YouTubes. It's called...
So reliable.
No, it's actually really cool. It's obviously, this isn't based on fact. It's based on scientific theory and the laws of physics and what may happen. Okay. It blew my mind. It's a half hour long. And what's awesome about this video, there's not one single ad, which is great. And I watched the whole thing. It's their prediction of how time will end, how everything will end. And it's shocking how big things are and how trillions and trillions upon trillions of years from now, things will just fade to black. There will be nothingness. And the fact that we as human beings believe that we are the thing, the species that matters most out of everything in the universe.
Right, not just the world, the universe.
The universe that we can't even identify. Right. If you believe there's life on other planets, we can't be the only thing that
That's another
matters,
episode.
Right? Sure. But, what kind of, arrogance is that to say, well, when we die, we have this really cool ability to sort of filter ourselves back into the physical realm and chill out with the people we love, or at least watch over them. I've said this before. That sounds absolutely miserable to me. That sounds terrible, because I do not want to be in that state of, I don't know, just torture.
Or
if I imagine that, God forbid, I die tomorrow, and if this is legit and I'm able to stay here in this house and watch you, but you and our daughter can't see me, I would be driven crazy.
Right.
Feeling assuming helpless. I still have this sense of consciousness. That's torture. That is probably the definition of hell, if there is one. Right. Because you can't interact. You're watching.
Well, I think that's the whole
grieve.
Point. And I've seen, and this is probably my go-to thinking of movies and TV shows who cover this. It may not be accurate of people who are actually really in depth into this stuff, but the idea that someone who's a medium or a spirit guide or whatever the title is, they're helping spirits cross over so they can get out of that sort of purgatory, in-between state. I think that's the goal that they say. If you're able to interact with your deceased loved one, we can help you communicate with them to whatever, tie up any loose ends or whatever it is that's keeping them here, and allow them to cross over into the actual afterlife.
Whatever. I just think that, when people have these experiences of interacting with the paranormal, we can take rooms, so activity in rooms. Again, all this shit happens at night. None of this happens during the day, right? Yeah. You don't see, especially in horror movies, it's like that's safe time during the day.
Sometimes.
I know, but now they've sort of become aware of this, and Paranormal Activity, the movie, they're like, we have to do stuff during the day.
In one of the sequels?
I don't know. I forget. There's 10 sequels, but
I know.
there was stuff happening during the day, and I'm like, okay, this makes sense. Like, this is a little bit more believable.
Right, you're right. Yeah, they were being haunted around the clock.
Yes. But in most horror movies and in most quote unquote docu movies, Blair Witch or whatever, it's always at night. It's never during the day.
Because that's creepy.
But I
That's
get
when
it.
it's creepy.
But if you ask yourself for a minute, okay, why doesn't this shit happen during the day? Why do I feel that these paranormal interactions that I'm having, or these door slammings or whatnot, I don't know. The first thing I'm going to is there's a draft.
Yeah.
You know, why does it have to be a ghost? Why? I don't understand. And, you know, or something happens outside and something cracks, like a tree branch or something. I'm not thinking, must be a ghost walking my way. It's either an animal or a fucking murderer coming my way. There is no in between.
Yeah. Yep.
That's all. I don't understand the psychology behind it, but I do understand that there is something exciting.
Yeah,
about
that was my
wanting.
last reason of why people maybe buy into this, or and it's funny, every time we talk about this, I fall in between. I'm on the fence. And I think the reason is because I just find it fun to think about. I think it's interesting. I think, I enjoy watching like ghost hunters and stuff like that, even though I know it's pretty much all just, it's TV. I mean, it's not real, but the idea behind it, I think, is fun and cool and interesting. And so I think that's just appealing for a lot of people. I think it's a similar kind of phenomenon as why people are so obsessed with like true crime and stuff like that. Like, it's just an interesting, engaging topic.
Yeah. Yeah. And if again, you've lost someone that is close to you, and having this sense of what you believe to be communication offers you comfort, I don't necessarily see a problem with that.
No, not at all.
And I'd like to think that most people in the back of their mind, at least a small portion of them at the very least, knows that this is probably nothing. But I will say that, I won't deny, if we're just going to talk about losing loved ones, I won't deny that there is a sense of, presence around it. Yeah, the way I see my dad is that, genetically, there is part of him in me. Sure. That doesn't mean presently, that doesn't mean physically, just genetically, there is something, he is here.
Right.
In at least my genetic code, scientifically. That doesn't mean there's a sense of communication. That doesn't mean there's a sense of, being in touch with it or in tune with it. It's just an overwhelming sense of, I feel that I'm connected to him as a previous person,
right,
or a strong influence in my life. But I don't necessarily believe that my dad is watching me and making sure that all the boxes are checked, because I mean, there's a sense of free will, an overwhelming sense of free will that I do believe we have. And I don't know, again, that would torture my dad. I don't think that's something he would be down for. So, but yeah, I get it. I understand the excitement of it, because it does make for good bar stories.
Sure.
Drinking stories, and I just don't, I don't know. I'm the type of person that would say, how can I explain this rationally? And if I can't, that just means I haven't figured it out.
There's just something
yet.
you don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
To me, that makes more sense.
Well, let's give some examples after the break of some of the stories we heard from our listeners, and then some of the ones that that I've had and that you always tell me, or Cindy, it's just science.
Yeah. Hang tight.
So we wouldn't be able to do this episode if we didn't talk about Toby, which obviously, if you've seen Paranormal Activity, you know that we ripped the ghost's name right from that movie.
Was that his name?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's why we named him Toby. So this was back when we lived in our old apartment with a couple of our friends. And whenever something weird happened or some noise or anything, we automatically said, "Oh, it's Toby." And you always did that.
Me.
Shook your head.
It was you.
No, me and our friend that lived with us.
Yeah, not me.
No, sorry. No, not you and me. Me and my friend that lived in the apartment on the first floor. She and I were always really into this stuff, and she actually submitted a really good a couple stories, I think, or experiences. She's really into this stuff. So yeah, we always joked about Toby, and you always rolled your eyes at me. But the one time I remember specifically that was so weird, and I know it obviously has a normal explanation, but there were several occasions where I think I woke up in the morning, or maybe it was the end of the day. I can't remember the timing exactly, but our thermostat kept getting cranked all the way up, to 85 or whatever the highest temperature was on the thermostat.
Sure.
And I kept saying, "Did you turn up the heat? And even if you had, why would you turn it up that high?" Neither of us was touching the thermostat, and it would always do that. And and you were like, "Well, it's probably just an old system. It's got some weird glitch, like it's just fucked up in some way." And we had it looked at. We had the system serviced. No one could figure out what was wrong with it.
We didn't have the system
Yes, we had the person who was in charge of the system come and look at it and check it out, and they couldn't find any problem with the thermostat or the heating system, and we never figured out why that was happening.
Yeah. So here's how I explain that away. Someone did it and didn't remember.
Well, that's what I was like. Was I sleepwalking?
That is a better explanation. That was going to be my second go-to.
Yeah.
We had terrible drafts.
A draft isn't going to move the.
You're not listening to
little.
me.
Okay,
I didn't
sorry.
finish.
Go ahead.
We had terrible drafts because the windows were pretty bad, especially in our bedroom at that apartment.
Yep.
There's a likelihood that in my days of waking up in my, half woken state, I may have walked to the thermostat to crank the heat
because you were cold, because you were right in front of the drafty window,
right next to the window. These things are
so you were sleepwalking.
I don't know. I'm just saying these explanations are far more likely.
I agree.
Than a ghost coming in. This will get them.
It's too cool.
This will teach them that I exist. The thermostat, of course. What else?
I know. But for some reason, that was like my go-to. Like, oh, it's obviously Toby.
Like what? When you think about it,
I know, it's ridiculous.
When you think about the things that you think ghosts are doing, why the thermostat?
What is the motivation?
So many better ways to communicate with me to make you think you exist.
Yeah. The only other thing that ever happened in that apartment that was creepy was our friends who lived on the first floor, their dog was in the basement. There were several occasions we were in the basement and the dog was downstairs with us and just started barking like crazy at nothing, like at the wall. And that dog didn't bark often.
Could have been a mouse.
I suppose, but that was the only thing. It was just like when he went on this like crazy.
But what about that explanation makes people say, no, it's a ghost? Couldn't have been a mouse.
I'm not saying it couldn't have been.
Couldn't have been a bug.
It was just creepy when it happened. We both were looking at each other like, why is he going crazy right now? Like, what just set him off? And it was just not in his normal behavior. So it was just weird. And he only ever did it in the basement.
These things can be explained away.
I'm sure it can.
Here's another one. When I was in that same apartment, so this must mean a ghost because this is two experiences rather. I was sitting down and I was studying. This is when I was in college, and it was a weekend night. I don't know why that matters. It doesn't. And I'm listening to music. I take my headphones off, and all of a sudden I hear one of your snow globes.
Oh, that's right. That thing was so fucking creepy.
But I'm thinking there's far more likely that there's a mechanical defect in this because this is a faulty piece of machinery than it wasn't even lifted up, nothing. Why would that be the thing that a ghost would say, hey, this is...
this is
proof. The
couldn't get him with the thermostat.
This is the one.
That thing was creepy though, because you think of like a little music box or something, like making that creepy jingle.
Right.
And going off in the middle of the night for no reason. That was creepy.
But you think about the things that we're granting the paranormal here, just for the sake of entertaining the thought. Okay, thermostat. You can move a dial, right? The music box. You can turn the thing that makes the music go. To convince me more, why don't you take the beer can in front of me and move it? If you can move,
but why are you assuming
things,
that the spirit's goal is to convince you?
But what else is it trying to do? Freak
I don't know.
me out?
I don't know.
Why is it always a negative experience? Why is it always? Why can't it be like, "What's up, dude?
Come, did you fold the clothes for me or something?
Hang out. Let's just watch TV."
Wow, look, the dishes are done. It must have
Why
been
are you
Toby.
so mad? There's plenty of room. You can take the couch. I don't care. But if you're trying, if for the sake of entertainment, if the ghost that people want to think exists is trying to make its presence known, why doesn't it do it in a more obvious way? If they have the ability, for the sake of entertaining this ridiculous thought, if they have the ability to move physical objects like the thermostat dial or the snow globe thing, why not just make it more obvious? Why not move a plate visually in front of me from left to right? Why does it stop on small nuances?
My answer is the same, is that I think the answer would be that that's not necessarily the goal. It's just their energy is present, and that just happens to be where it's manifesting.
No, see, that is the biggest cop-out.
I know. I'm not saying I believe that. I'm saying I can imagine that's probably the argument.
That is a terrible, terrible cop-out. Let's move on. So one of our friends posted on the actual While She's Napping preview post, and I'll read it. She said, "When my brother was 4 or 5, my mom loaded him in his car seat and went to shut the door, and he screamed, 'Wait, you have to let Mrs. McLaughlin in first.'" I think that's her
McLaughlin.
name.
Yeah.
He paused and he said, "Okay, you can close the door now." Mrs. McLaughlin or Lynn.
McLaughlin.
Yeah. Irish.
Yeah.
I'm Irish. Was his grandmother, his father's mother, who died about 15 years before he was born. When my stepdad told him about her, he used the term grandma, but Mrs. McLaughlin was what my mom always called her. So,
right. So the point is that her brother had never heard his grandmother referred to as Mrs. McLaughlin. He had no way of knowing that that's what
I call bullshit.
His mom called her.
I call bullshit. Probably there was a conversation between the mom and the husband
about her.
Or was it stepdad? I don't know. All right. And about her, and she referred to her as Mrs. McLaughlin, and
he happened to catch it.
Yep. And he
I know.
latched onto that.
No, probably. I mean, kids hear and catch on to everything. So I do think that that's a probable explanation. But I can also see how that would take you aback and be like, how the hell do you know who Mrs. McLaughlin is?
Right.
Like, why would you call her that?
Right. But what's more likely?
And the fact that he said you have to leave the door open to let her in and then close the door. But then again, it's a kid's imagination.
What's more likely?
I know.
You said it, because how often do you reference people in conversation? What names did we reference today?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
And she probably heard every word.
She probably heard and remembered.
And tomorrow she'll say a name of someone that we talked about, and she'll
right.
Yeah. I know what you're saying.
Okay, so we'll take to the Instagram, and there were quite a few of responses left in our Insta story.
So what were the results of the poll? What was the percentage of people who said they believed in ghosts?
58 yes, 42 no, which
so
I was very
close.
happy about that.
Yeah, it was close.
I was not anticipating my position to be that high.
Yeah.
Right. So this is from a member that is a new follower of us. I personally don't believe in ghosts, but my mother has a story or two I can recount, and then that's it. So one of our friends,
to follow up on that.
Yes, one of our friends said, "I see them all the time," with an upside down smiley face. So, I mean, if you want to elaborate. And of course, My Space With You podcast, shout out to them. I went ghost hunting my senior year in high school for an AP psychology final project. Things got weird. When I hear that, I think that's the point of the project.
Ghost hunt, or yeah, right. What was the objective of the study or the psychology project? That's
right.
true. Yeah,
is to sort of fuck with you.
And when you go on a ghost tour, so I had a really creepy experience too on a ghost tour in Plymouth, Mass, where I swear I saw a weird like orb-like thing. And I know you have your whole thing about how orbs have been disproven and all that, but I think it's all like theatrics. They get you all creeped out. It's at night. You're in a historical cemetery and going through these old houses.
Set.
The mood is set. They're telling you these creepy ass stories and you're like primed for it. And
of course,
they're probably actively doing things to like make you think you see something. I mean, it's a business. They're a tourism business. So things that happen on ghost tours, I mean, I like getting wrapped up in that for the sake of like, I can, remove myself from reality for the sake of the entertainment and the experience. But in my logical brain, I know it probably didn't happen.
Right. And, there's something to be said about that, especially when you go on ghost tours or in a much less serious way when you watch things like Ghost Hunters and whatnot. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like going to a comedy show. And this is documented. When you go to a comedy show, you are so much more willing to laugh at things that you otherwise may not have found funny because you're in the setting. Mm-hmm. You're there for a comedy show. So, and I'm not saying the comedians aren't funny. They are, but there's a sense of, it's rude if I don't laugh.
That's why you're there.
I don't want to be that,
And everybody else is laughing.
Yeah, so this must be funny. And again, there are some legitimate reactions where you say to yourself, this is funny. I'm laughing my ass off. I've been there. But there have been, smaller scale comedy shows that we went to, the Comedy Connection here in Rhode Island. And I remember the opening act saying stuff, and I'm reflecting. I'm like, that wasn't funny. It wasn't even funny, but I laughed.
Yeah.
I gave the person
like a courtesy or like a
but because I think in the setting, it
seems funnier.
It was sort of a psychological response to it. It was sort of this, I don't know, disingenuous, but I didn't really evaluate it as such.
I know what you mean.
Just to laugh, right? And maybe I believed that this was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But looking back on it, if I heard that joke again in the house,
just like
on
out
TV,
of context, just like randomly.
No. When I watch comedy shows on television, it's hard for me to laugh.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
When
you're not in a group.
It's got to be really funny
person.
for me to laugh out loud.
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle is probably one of the only comedians to make me do that, laugh out loud.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing with these paranormal things. When you go to ghost hunter tours or watch, maybe not the show, but when you go on these ghost tours or whatnot, you're more inclined to anticipate or sort of want and thirst for
an experience.
Yeah. And the slightest things you'll grab onto, because no one's there. Sorry, most of the people there aren't looking to disprove this.
They're not skeptics. They're there for the experience.
They're there to invite it.
Right.
And I don't know. I just feel that when you're in that setting, the switch has been turned on in your mind, and these little things you'll want to gravitate towards.
Although I will say, when I had that orb thing happen, I was looking through my phone to take a picture. I was with my coworkers and I was taking a picture of the rest of the group, and I had one of my colleagues standing next to me, and he was looking through the camera with me, and we both saw the same thing.
It's been explained.
Move in a weird way. And we both like looked at each other like, what the fuck was that? Like, it wasn't just my own experience. That's the only thing that I was like, I thought maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me, or I was just seeing something because I wanted to, but he saw it too. And we still talk about it to
I'm
this
not
day.
saying you didn't see it. I'm saying those things have been explained away. Orbs in photos have been explained
But it wasn't
away.
just a photo. It was while I was taking the photo. So it was like the live image, and like I saw it move.
I get it.
Okay.
It's been explained away.
How do they move?
I don't know. I just have seen, because there was that time during your graduation party, I was taking a picture and I said, there's an orb in here, and you immediately ran through the Rolodex of dead people, and you said, oh, must be this person. That makes sense. And I remember researching and saying to myself, no, this was...
Well, I can understand when it's like an actual picture and you're looking back at the still image and it's like a weird reflection or like a fleck of dust or something. But when you're actually like looking at it live, moving in weird ways, that was what made me weirded out.
See, I wouldn't go for ghosts. I'd say aliens.
Well,
clearly.
Sure. And again, I was on a ghost tour. So
Way
maybe they were
obvious.
like shining they have some tool to like create an orb. And again, it was a photo in front of a historical cemetery. Like It was, all probably a setup.
So bringing it back to that friend that used to live below us, she sent us a text. She was supposed to stay at the Biltmore Hotel. Now, the Biltmore Hotel is a historical hotel in Rhode Island, more specifically in Providence. She watched a video of some quote-unquote paranormal activity, a ghost slamming the door at the Biltmore Hotel in Providence, and this freaked her out, and she decided she was supposed to stay there
for like a conference.
I think her work ended up putting her up there, but she went back home.
She had a room rented, but she couldn't bring herself to sleep there.
So again, I just said before, I watched this YouTube video about how, but that's more of a prediction based on scientific research. It probably is inaccurate. It's just I don't necessarily buy into it and think that's what's going to happen. When I see paranormal activity and uploaded to YouTube, I automatically think there's someone else involved here.
You set it up.
There's someone else in this room that we can't see, or there's string or something.
Well, some pretty good camera work if that's the case. I have to say, like this video, like you can, like he has, especially since the mirror involved and it's a small space because it's a hotel room, it would be very difficult to have that other person maneuver themselves in such a way that they would not be visible on camera either directly or through the mirror. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying that's some serious like gymnastics to have that other person never show up in the frame.
Well, you said, I remember that. I've seen this video too. Creepy. Let's let Adam, the paranormal debunker, weigh in on the explanation. I said, easy. Science or that person is lying.
Yeah, but what do you mean by science?
Okay, and I'm saying there could have been a draft.
In the bathroom, there's no windows.
Okay, then what's more likely? This person is making it up and setting it up, or ghosts?
This isn't the only example of something creepy happening at the Biltmore.
And that's the thing.
It's infamous for it.
One person uploads a video.
Now everybody starts seeing it happening.
They want it to happen, or they say nothing's happened. We advertise that we're going to be here. We need to make something happen. Or they fuel the beast on YouTube. That's all.
I guess.
Just because it's recorded on someone's cell phone doesn't mean it's legit.
I know.
And I think when people see the slim video, and it's definitely from a cell phone, this must have happened. There's no
It doesn't mean it can't be edited or it can't be produced
set
in
up.
some way. Sure.
That's my go-to.
I get it. I know, but that video is great. Like I'm saying, if that's the case, that guy, they did a fantastic job, because that was like, it was really well done if it was set up, because it's really creepy.
Well, she said, after I said that person is lying or it's science or what have you, our friend said, no way, we stayed there 3 more times and I always went home. Okay, so you didn't experience any of this.
Well, what made her go home?
She's freaked out. She saw the videos.
Okay.
So she didn't want to.
Right. She didn't want to risk it.
For the sake of transparency, she has not experienced this.
By the way, this is the same friend who lived at the apartment with Toby. Yeah, I don't know if you said that.
One woman in my group said her jewelry ended up on a different dresser and lined up. And do we know this?
Okay.
Could she
so
has been
lying,
bullshitting?
Though?
But what is more likely? That a ghost lined up her jewelry perfectly, or she's trying to scare our friend and she knows she's trying to scare our friend and she knows our friend has these preconceived notions of this activity.
She's like primed for it.
Right.
Yeah.
She said she kept hearing an elevator door open and close and a cart with dishes on it being rolled out. Okay, maybe there's staff. Where's the kitchen in relation to this?
Didn't she say after that they
she
inquired
asked about it,
it?
And the employees told her the elevator near her room was an old service elevator that no longer was in service. Then maybe she was tripping balls. Maybe she takes, what's that stuff that helps you sleep?
melatonin.
Yeah, maybe she's taking that.
So that's one thing I remember too. So I didn't know that there was a word for it until pretty recently in the last couple of years. But I've had some weird experiences, not like hallucinations, but weird experiences of sleep when I wake up from sleep or I partially wake up, that it's actually called sleep paralysis.
Yes.
I didn't realize.
You're still in sort of a
yeah,
dream.
But you're awake, but your body is not awake. So you feel like you can't move.
Yeah, but that's different than hearing shit.
Right. But I'm saying like a lot of people, what I've read is a lot of people actually hallucinate and see like figures or people or hear things. They have like full blown hallucinations. I've never had that experience. I've had the experience of being awake, but feeling like I can't physically move. And I had one experience when I was a kid. I remember feeling so vividly. And of course, my parents told me it was probably just a dream, but now I think it maybe was my first ever episode of sleep paralysis where I was awake and I felt my bed like shaking hard. Like I thought there was an earthquake and I was so freaked out because I got up to run to my parents' room and I couldn't move and I was just shaking in my bed.
Right.
And so I think experiences like that can happen as a result of sleep paralysis, and people, it feels like it's really hard to differentiate between that and a dream.
Yeah. And I get it. And to me, that sounds more likely than I had a paranormal experience.
Right.
It seems more likely to me that we can use those types of examples because, again, you just admitted it. If you were experiencing sleep paralysis for the first time, I don't know that you would say, oh, that must have been sleep paralysis.
Of course not. I ran to my parents' room and said, there's something under my bed shaking my bed. Like there's a monster or something.
And I'm not saying this person that stayed there experienced sleep paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
But I am saying that, one, first of all, that explanation makes way more sense than paranormal activity.
Right.
Two, if we're going to disregard sleep paralysis, if our friend already told her about her, fears of staying there, the beast was already fueled in this person.
So it's like a feedback loop of you share the story
planted.
And then you think, and then, I know what you mean.
You know, so this person might have been there looking for things or searching for things and whatnot, or she's lying. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying this person's
or she
a liar,
was sleepwalking and she lined up her own jewelry.
Maybe,
you never know.
Maybe. But all of those things, again, I don't want to accuse of someone of being a liar, but I would definitely take that and hold more weight in that than paranormal activity.
Yeah, maybe.
So if she didn't lie, which I'll give her the benefit of the doubt that person staying there didn't lie, there are so many other explanations that we can apply to this that doesn't equal paranormal activity.
Yeah,
that's
maybe.
all.
But I get it.
Yeah. Well, if you have any unexplained phenomenon in terms of ghost stories or interactions with the paranormal that you believe to be legitimate, spiritual stories, divine intervention, whatnot, that you would like to share with us, we invite you to do so. You can hit us up on our Facebook page. You can comment on the episode link or on the image that we put up on the page in response to it. We'd love to hear it. If you want to leave it on Instagram, you can. Twitter, you can. Or if you want to respond to the Reddit thread in which one of the various Reddit threads that the episode will be posted on, we invite you to do so. We'd love to hear it, and I'd love to hear the explanation for it. I'm a skeptic. I look for...
you love trying to explain them.
Yes. Yeah. I look for the natural reason. So maybe you can convince me that this is a natural thing, and this can be backed up by some sort of scientific evidence, which I would love to see. Maybe I'm blinded by it and or unaware, ignorant towards it. I'd love to hear it. But so what do we want to do next week? What are we doing? You don't know?
I have no idea.
Want to make it a surprise again?
Yeah. We'll let something like the pumpkin spice surprise coffee I got last week that inspired this topic. We'll try to wait for some divine intervention to tell us what to talk about next week.
All right. Well, if you have any suggestions or anything that you want specifically for us to talk about on next episode or an episode in the future, we invite you to get in touch with us, and you can do so by hitting up
our Facebook.
Facebook.com/While
She's Napping. Or on Instagram @While She's Napping. On Twitter @She's Napping Pod. Or you can email us whileshe'snapping@gmail.com.
hit us up. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to know what your experiences have been. And until next week, we appreciate the download. We appreciate the listenership and the participation. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the show. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcast fix from. And please, if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review. It helps us out a bunch. And if your podcatcher does not have a review system, hit up the Facebook page, give us 5 stars there. But until next week, thanks for listening. Peace.
Bye.